Hello and welcome back to Mike's Tech Reviews. Today we have the Behringer SL84C dynamic microphone for live stage use, podcasting, and voice recording. Behringer markets this as an affordable live and studio recording microphone with a super clean sound, minimal distortion, and slight presence lift in the critical mid-range. Let's see if it does live up to that. On with the review. Pricing for these are a bit wonky right now. The only listing I saw on Amazon is priced at $50 and no other US retailers have them in stock. In the UK, I saw a few priced at around $12 to $20 converted. I bought mine in the Philippines for 2,500 Philippine pesos, which is around $50. As of May 2021, it is selling for under 2,200 pesos. Most likely the pandemic has affected the pricing and availability, though I've seen some international retailers list it as being discontinued. It comes with a mic holder which is entirely made out of plastic, including its thread and adapter. It does not come with a cable. Its affordability is a bit questionable given current market pricing and availability. Let's look at the specs of the SL84C. It's a dynamic microphone with frequency response of 50Hz to 15,000Hz with an impedance of 250 ohms. It uses a 3-pin balanced XLR connection. It has a cardioid polar pickup pattern with a sensitivity of -54 decibels. And with the maximum sound pressure level of 150 dB, it can handle very loud sound sources before it distorts the recorded signal. This is a pretty lightweight mic at 200 grams. The 50Hz to 15,000Hz frequency response means that for vocals, it will pretty much capture the details no problem. Where it might be inadequate is in instruments recording, either acoustic or amplified. There will be a mic test later in the video, but it's not complete as I have no acoustic guitar nor a guitar amp to test it with. The cardioid polar pickup pattern will help a bit in sound rejection, which we'll see later in the mic tests. With the proper positioning, you can take advantage of this so that the dead zones are directed at locations where unwanted noises may appear in your home studio setup. In a live performance, the back of the mic would be facing the crowd, so crowd noise would be less present in the output. On with the build quality. The microphone's body is made out of metal, which feels decently tough. You can be a bit rough with this mic, but don't go full caveman with it. It's lightweight, kind of makes you think it's cheap. Also, the body can easily scratch. It also has a silver metal grill with a foam inner layer or pop filter to help a bit with plosives management. I'll check its plosive rejection later. Now, when it comes to microphones, Behringer is known to get inspired by other manufacturers' products, and the SL84C is no different. It's been compared to the Shure SM58 and SM48, with the latter I believe having a closer similarity when it comes to their frequency response. I don't have either of the Shure microphones to confirm, but there are plenty of videos out there showing how they sound like. And relevantly, the next section is where I'll present several recording tests with the Behringer SL84C. I have been using the microphone throughout this video, but it has been post-processed to control a bit of the bass and treble, as well as a bit of noise reduction, and I have a windscreen on it. The following test recordings were not post-processed and the mic was used as is unless otherwise stated. The SL84C is connected to an Audient ID4 Mark II interface and recorded via Adobe Audition with the gain knob set at the 9th position. Few things are more essential to recording or live performance than dynamic microphones. Ask any sound engineer and they will tell you to keep as many as possible on hand. Behringer brings you the great sounding SL84C dynamic microphone with impact-resistant case, stand adapters, and mic clips. You'll be ready to capture sound in brilliant resolution. This is the sound with my mouth almost touching the mic. This is the sound 1 foot away. This is the sound about 2 feet away. The microphone is now set in front of my monitor and keyboard to test rear sound rejection. I'm using a keyboard with JRMX Blues with O-rings. As mentioned earlier, the SL84C has a cardioid polar pickup pattern. This indicates where it captures sounds better than others, and in the previous test, it was demonstrated with the keyboard sounds. I'll turn the microphone around as I'm speaking to give you an idea of how it sounds. First at the front, as it should be. This area is where it's most sensitive. Next, you orient the microphone upright so that I'm speaking to the sides, and this is how it sounds. Finally, I'm speaking from the rear of the mic, and this should be more or less a dead spot. I will now say phrases that contain a lot of plosives and S sounds. First with the microphone as is, and second with the windscreen on. Philippines, Pilipinas, Filipino, Filipino. The super souped-up Supra sped past the patrolling police car. The busted bunker was blown by a B-2 bomber. Philippines, Pilipinas, Filipino, Filipino. The super souped-up Supra sped past the patrolling police car. The busted bunker was blown by a B-2 bomber. The last test is handling noise. I'll move the mic around in my hands as I speak. The microphone is marketed for live performance, whether for singing or speaking. You would not want any unwanted noise included during a performance or speech. Let's summarize what I liked and didn't like about the Behringer SL84C. Let's start with the cons. It's obvious from the test that the overall sound is very bassy and muddy, as well as making treble sounds grating, more so if your voice leans to the treble side of the frequency. These sounds get worse as you talk closer to the microphone. The handling noise is quite bad, and this being marketed for live use, it is quite disappointing. This will almost always be on a mic stand or mic arm, with the latter setup mounted on a table separate from your main work table. It captures table bump and tap sounds easily. Its Plosives Ess and breath sound rejection is also a downside. Pair this with either a windscreen or pop filter to mitigate these sounds. Now let's talk about the pros, which there's only one. It's affordable. Considering its price and how cheap windscreens or pop filters are, you can make this microphone sound decent to really good in addition to EQ and post-processing. For simple stage use like school presentations and announcements, it's fine as is. For formal speeches or singing, you need to do live equalizing. Its price allows you to buy many for little expense. Despite how this mic sounds, it is still miles better than those questionable, cheap, unknown brands you find in online stores. So who is the Behringer SL84C for? It's not the best if your microphone needs are that of an upper mid-range or pro level kind of recordings, but that's why this is cheap. This mic is for the desperate musician or content creator that needs a dynamic mic that isn't a fake Shure. It's also for venues that need a lot of decent mics for affordable prices. I recommend having this mic on a stand or mic arm and avoid using it handheld. To make up for how it sounds, you will need to do extra live EQ or post-processing work to tame those offending characteristics. As for my use case, it's fine. I think of it as a learner microphone, both in how I use it but also in audio post-processing. There's an imbalance of using this cheap microphone with a pretty premium quality audio interface like the ID4, but that just means I can maximize what the SL84C is capable of and rely solely on my techniques and post-process skills. I do suggest pairing this with a more reasonable interface just to keep the total expense within a reasonable budget. This mic will stay with me for a long time as listening to the voice recordings I've done, I don't really have much complaints. The EQing and post-processing I've learned from other channels further improves the sound I'm getting out of this microphone. I will link a couple of videos in the description below showing a good starting point workflow for voice EQ and post-processing. That said, if you didn't like the SL84C, here are some alternatives. First is its older brother, the XM8500. They can be found brand new for $20 in certain retailers, but on Amazon they are more than twice that. In the Philippines, they are priced a bit higher than the SL84C. The XM8500 sound a bit more bass heavy but lack the high trebles of the SL84C. Another option is the Shure SM48, which I've mentioned sounds similar to what Behringer is trying to create with the SL84C. These have better build quality, of course, and have a much more controlled frequency response to the SL84C. They are priced around $40. Unfortunately, I couldn't find them being sold locally here in the Philippines. Go for this alternative, you can spare more money and want a similar but better controlled sound than the SL84C. Finally, we have the relatively expensive Shure SM58. It's pretty much achieved the legendary status among vocalists and are well known in the world of podcasting and streaming. These have a similar frequency response as the SM48 but a bit darker sounding, similar to how the XM8500 compares to the SL84C. Priced at $100 or 6,000 pesos, if your budget allows for it and you really need the Shure quality, this might be a compelling option. Now a warning when buying Shure mics. Make sure that the ones you're looking at are original and not fake ones. The fake ones sound so bad that you're better off using the microphone on the headset that came with your average Android phone. Or just choose one of the Behringer ones. Make sure to read the product and seller reviews on whatever site you are buying from to make sure they are authentic. Finally, in order to use a mic, you'd need an audio interface. Thankfully, dynamic mics don't require phantom power and you can opt for an interface or even a mixer that doesn't come with one, which will lower the cost. I still recommend an interface that has 48 volts phantom power just in case you plan to change to a condenser mic in the future. Something like Behringer's own UM2, UMC22, UMC202HD audio interfaces are things to consider. Respectively, they are priced around $45, $65, and $100 or 3,500, 4,600, and 5,700 Philippine pesos. Apart from an affordable interface, considering the Behringer SL84C, you'll need an XLR cable, a windscreen or pop filter to help with plosives, and a mic stand or arm. For male to female XLR cables, measure how long of a cable you need and buy either the cheapest or decent quality one you can find as a starting point. Only look for properly shielded ones. Unshielded cables are easily interfered with other electronics, and this can introduce noises in the form of hums or buzzes. Something like the Amazon Basics SLR cable is enough. They sell 2 packs of 3-feet cables for $14. I bought an even cheaper 1.5 meter one for less than 127 Philippine pesos or less than $3. It's shielded and works fine. I strongly recommend getting a windscreen or pop filter to use with the SL84C. I bought a cheap windscreen stock locally for 15 pesos or about 30 US cents. A pop filter is a bit more expensive and is better at plosive reduction, so this is something to consider. The windscreen does more than just reduce plosives. It also lowers high frequency sounds. In general, you don't want anything to affect your microphone's sound. In the case of the SL84C, because it has an elevated treble that can become too much, a loss in high frequency sound might actually help it. This would make the resulting captured sound similar to XM8500. Regardless if you're going to use this mic live or in a home studio setup, I recommend buying a mic stand or arm for it. The handling noise is very noticeable, and in the podcast or streaming setup, a mic arm is pretty much required to free your hands. There are many cheap mic arms to be found. Cheap not just in price but also quality. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Some can be had for $10 but spend a bit more to at least be confident in the quality of the mic arm. I bought mine locally for 243 pesos or around $5, and the thumb screws to tighten the mid-joint and the pitch of the mic clamp dug through the thin metal sheet, and now I can't loosen them. So in total, you'd be spending around $150 or 6,085 pesos if you're considering the better UMC202HD interface. That's a really good price for a decent sounding entry setup. You just need a headphone so you can monitor and mix your recordings better. So that was my review of the Behringer SL84C dynamic mic. It's affordable, good as a starter mic for voiceover, possible for singing live or in studio, and can be further improved with live EQ or post-processing. The only concern now is its current pricing and availability. As I mentioned above, the prices are not consistent and it's hard to find it in stock. What do you think of this mic? If you have an experience with it and have something to share or know other lesser known alternatives to this mic that you can recommend, comment down below so other viewers can learn something too. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If not, click the thumbs down button, and hopefully you can also provide constructive criticism down in the comments below. Also, if you'd like to see more, please click the subscribe button, and if you want to further support the channel, I've linked in the description below on how to do just that. Thank you for watching, and until the next video, this has been Mike's Tech Reviews.